Hi everybody, welcome to this video on Roman philosophies, and we're doing chapter 11 of the textbook you see on the screen, The Great Conversation. Great textbook, I have to say. And we're going to cover the main, most influential philosophies from this period, from the Roman period. As you see on the screen, we're going to do it in this order. We're going to talk about Epicureanism, skepticism, and Stoicism. Cynicism was another important philosophy at the time, but we're not going to deal with that in this video. And I'm going to start with from the beginning with the historical context and understand what's going on, because these philosophies and these philosophers, they're very different compared to the previous philosophers we considered before: Aristotle, Plato, Socrates. And once we understand the historical context, you'll see why their interest, it's different. Their attitude, outlook, it's completely different. So you have to understand the history behind these philosophies. But something really interesting we're going to do, and I'm going to do this for the first time, right? I've never done this before in my classes. I'm going to offer a particular way of assessing these philosophies. Okay, we're going to assess these philosophies using Maslow hierarchy of needs. Yes, indeed, we're going to talk about that again. We talked about the pyramid of needs in the first video on Aristotle. And I mean, I'm a huge fan of Maslow, everybody knows it. But the thing about the hierarchy of needs, it's just tremendously helpful to understand so many things. Like, it's unbelievable. And again, for the first time, we're going to use it to assess and thus understand these philosophies and understand their value, their potential, and so on. So stick with me, and it's going to be interesting. I can guarantee you that. So Epicureanism, skepticism, and Stoicism. Now, the historical context. Okay, basically, we um, we are going from the Greek philosophers to the Roman philosophers, and like I said, their attitude completely different because the circumstances are different. We are going from the philosophers who were Greek citizens of independent city states, right? People who had power, political power, people who could become the next political leader of their city states, of Athens or Thebes or other city states, important city states in ancient Greece. But especially in Athens, right? Athens is the main center of intellectual activity back in ancient Greek times. So anybody in Athens, pretty much anybody with the right training in rhetoric, could become a prominent, very powerful individual. So you didn't need to be like influential in the sense of having a lot of money, right? And having a lot of friends. If you were good back in ancient Athens, if you were good speaking, persuading people, man, I mean, you could become anything, the most powerful person in your city state. I mean, think about Alexander the Great, for example. This man conquered the entire known world back in antiquity. So, I mean, think about that. In ancient Greek times, the Greeks felt like they could do anything they wanted to do. They could be the kings of the world, literally. So it's a very interesting period, a period of a lot of optimism, for sure. Optimism. I mean, people were empowered. They could sue anyone. They could sue a regular Athenian citizen could sue a political leader, right? The most important political leader, and bring him to court. I mean, they had tremendous power. So we're going from a period of intellectual activity in this context, right? The ancient Greek independent city states to Roman subjects, because these philosophies, Epicureanism, skepticism, Stoicism, cynicism, they thrived in that area, in that era, I should say, in which uh, citizens were not, people were not citizens. They were not independent. They did not have the power to run for office or make speeches and become influential. No, 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 no. This is a different world. The Romans conquered everything. After Alexander the Great conquered the whole world, well, later came the Roman Empire, and they conquered everything. And now the Romans are the new masters. And they were not interested in having independent city states. No, they wanted the power all for themselves. So all the territories that they conquered, they were under their dominion, right? And people, again, went from being citizens to subjects, slaves, even. Yes, so there was a lot of slavery in Roman times, and it was a common institution. I mean, it's because it's a different world, right? Now with the Romans in control, it's about power. And again, the Romans had all the power. So the textbook says right at the beginning of the chapter, chapter 11, that history, let's say, or philosophy entered this dark age. It makes sense, right? I mean, people were not as optimistic and as excited about life as they used to be in ancient Greek times. So we have a new outlook on life, the outlook of the Roman subjects. And this is interesting because in Stoicism, at least, we're going to see philosophers like the man you see on the screen, on the picture, the front man, it's Marcus Aurelius, who was a Roman emperor. He was the most powerful man in the known world in antiquity. Marcus Aurelius, head of the Roman Empire, and yet he was a philosopher, Stoic philosopher. And that's another thing about this Roman philosophies: Epicureanism, skepticism, and Stoicism. Our philosophies are appeal to everybody, every single person, slave, freed, politician, wealthy, poor, everybody could profit from these philosophies and identify and find meaning in them. So that's something very interesting about the Roman philosophies compared to the previous philosophies, the Greek philosophies or the Greek philosophers. I mean, they were very Aristotle. I mean, he was a scientist basically, right? So, if back then, if you were not interested in science, then you would not find Aristotle very appealing. And Plato was somebody who was like in the world of ideas, right? Very profound thinker. So, if you were not that profound thinker, metaphysician, whatever, right? If you were not interested in those things, then you probably wouldn't find Plato's philosophy interesting, appealing. But Epicureanism, skepticism, Stoicism, and even cynicism, they were very appealing because they were very down to earth sort of philosophies, addressing a common concern: happiness. Happiness. So, this is the goal of all these Roman philosophies: happiness. How can we be happy in this world, in a world in which we really have no control about anything, about our condition, about our cities, our towns, about the laws? We have no control. Everything it's imposed on us from above, from the Roman leaders, right? So how can we thrive? How can we be happy in this environment? And well, right, happiness. This is something we all want. I mean, going back to Aristotle, happiness is the goal. It's the goal of our psychological development. So how can we be happy under these conditions, these new conditions? And so that became the main theme in this Roman philosophy. So let's start with Epicureanism. And and again, when we use Maslow hierarchy, you're going to see we're going to start doing the assessment. But let me tell you about, in a nutshell, about Epicureanism. Um, People think, and it was believed for centuries, that Epicureanism is a synonym for hedonism, for a life of pleasure. If you're just interested in pleasure, in seeking pleasure, and having a good time, getting drunk, getting laid, people would associate this behavior, this mindset with Epicureanism. But that it's that it's not correct. I mean, the philosophy of Epicureanism after the philosopher Epicurus, it's yes, pleasure. It's the main thing, right? The main principle, let's say, in pursuing happiness. But Epicurus' take on pleasure was very, very different from just sensual pleasure. And I want to read something to you from the textbook, from the Great Conversation, and it's a quote by Epicurus, and he says, and I quote: "When we say that pleasure is the end, we do not mean the pleasure of the profligate or that which depends on physical enjoyment." Okay, very important clarification. But by pleasure, we mean the state wherein the body is free from pain and the mind from anxiety. Okay, so that's what it's meant by pleasure to the Epicureans. Um, we mean the state wherein the body is free from pain and the mind free from anxiety. Neither continual drinking or dancing, nor sexual love, nor the enjoyment of fish and whatever else the luxurious table offers brings about the pleasant life. Rather, it is produced by the reason, which is sober. So, okay, so these people were intellectuals. They were not just party animals. They were trying to okay, understand happiness. Okay, how do we become happy? Well, it's about pleasure, but by that it's meant um, we have to put ourselves in a circumstance, in a situation where we don't feel physical pain, and we don't feel, I don't know, intellectual pain. We don't feel anxious, or psychological pain, I should say. We don't feel anxious. We're not depressed. And for the Epicureans, well, philosophy is the tool with which we can attain happiness, right? And so philosophy, according to the Epicureans, can do two things for us. Number one, free us from certain fears and anxieties. And secondly, help us find ways of maximizing pleasure in life, maximizing, yeah, pleasure and finding happiness. So it's interesting that the first goal, free us from certain fears and anxieties, the Epicureans believed that religion was a major spoiler of happiness. So the Epicureans are known for being atheist, um, or not exactly atheist. When you get to know the Epicureans and the philosophers associated with the movement, they were not exactly atheists, but they just had this very interesting take on religion and the gods. They thought like the gods lived in some place, right, in the world above, and they're totally disconnected from our reality, from our condition. They have no business to do with our lives, and they're totally unconcerned about us because I mean we are finite, we are imperfect creatures, right? And pathetic probably from the point of view of the gods who they're powerful and they don't need anything. They don't need anything. They don't need us. So they're perfectly happy in their own realm, their own, I don't know, domain of existence or whatever. So they have nothing to do with us, totally unconcerned about it. So we must forget about the gods. Just forget about that stuff. Get over it. Get over your fears of death. I mean, and the Epicureans say it like, I mean, what is death in the end? It's nothing. I mean, when you die, you're going to stop suffering. So that's going to be the end of suffering, right? So that's should be something that's something we should welcome. And again, we have to train our minds. We have to convince ourselves using philosophy that this is just a stage of life. I mean, every living being ends in the same way, right? In death. So that's the Epicureans. So for the Epicureans, though, the main the main goal, right? Again, it's happiness. So how exactly do I become happy in this terrible world, right? In this world of the Romans, in which I'm either a subject or a slave, and I'm forced to live in a way that I don't want. I'm forced to pay taxes. Maybe I'm forced to give everything, all my profits, to a Roman official. Like, how can I be happy? What am I supposed to do? And the answer the Epicureans give is, well, Friendship. That's that's it. That's how we are happy. Friends are necessary for happiness. I mean, isn't it true? We love being around our friends and having a good time, and I don't know, drinking if there's alcohol available or whatever, dancing, or just chatting. It's pleasant, right, to be around friends, good friends. So, well, the Epicureans will say, well, that's the end. Just happiness and having friends. That's the end of life. That's what happiness means, having a lot of good friends. Now, you might think, well, that's it. That's it. Of course, for you, viewer, living in present times, totally different reality. For you, you would think, gosh, so that's it. That's all there is to happen. It's just having good friends. But I have good friends, and I don't know. I'm still not fully satisfied. I don't think that's what happiness is all about. I mean, it's great to have friends, but that just can't be it. This is how we reason. This is how we think today. But again, these people are different, are living in a very, very different, dark conditions, right? So, okay, so that's it. Just happiness, having friends. Now, let's bring in Maslow, so to speak, and the hierarchy of needs on the next slide. So you see, we start doing the assessment that I was telling you about. So let's go. Okay, here we go. Here's the hierarchy of needs. We talked about it in the first video on Aristotle. I'm going to address very, very quickly the importance of these layers very quickly. As you see at the bottom is the first one, right? The main category of needs, our most important direct needs that we have as human beings. Breathing, obviously, food, water, shelter, clothing, sleep. Okay, if we don't have these, we just we won't survive. So they're super super important. That's why they're at the base. They're very important. That's what sustains everything else, right? So if we don't have these physiological needs met, then again, life is going to be a real struggle. But once we have these needs met, once we have, okay, we have secure shelter, we have secure food and clothing, once we can breathe, right? Okay, then normally human beings tend to look at the next thing. Okay, what's next now? I mean, what can I do with my life? So Maslow would say, well, people would tend to look at the next level, this kind of needs. Health, okay, that's important, right? We want to be healthy, have a stable source of income, employment, property, okay, we want to have a house, we want to have, today, we would like to have a car, have a family. Okay. Now, once we have that, once we have we're healthy, we have a stable source of income, we have some basic property, a house, a car, and we have family, then what? Uh, well, we would look at to the next level. And look what it's on the next level. Love and belonging, friendship, but this is like intimate friendship, family, intimacy, right? And sense of connection. Okay. Why is this important? Why why I'm using the hierarchy of needs to analyze these philosophies, these Roman philosophies? You probably, some of you probably know already, because for the Romans, it seems at least for the Epicureans, this is how they saw themselves. They probably felt like they were stuck on the third level, right? The yellow level, love and belonging. That's it. Back then in Roman times, as a Roman subject, you could not aspire to anything above that level. You cannot aspire to be someone who has confidence, someone who feels achieved, someone who has the respect of other people. The need to be a unique individual. Are you kidding me? Back then, okay, if you had friends, that's it. You have good friends, you have intimacy, good family, that's all you can aspire. That's all that life can give. You can expect out of life. That's the top. You cannot, because it would be absurd, right? I mean, one of the ideas of Epicureanism is to use philosophy to avoid experiencing psychological pain. So if you're hoping for more, then you're going to suffer being a Roman subject. I mean, you want the respect of other people. Uh, how are you going to do that? You're a subject, you're or a slave. You're somebody who is destined to spend your entire life being whatever, a farmer, right? Taking care of cows. You're going to be someone who's for the rest of your life you're going to make shoes or you're going to make furniture. That's your lot in life. You cannot aspire to anything above that. So you cannot entertain those notions and those hopes of becoming something important, somebody prominent, and feeling like you're a unique person. No, just shut up and work on your shoes. Shut up and milk those cows. Shut up and pick up those vegetables. That's all you have to do. That's all you can do. And you will do. So you see what I'm saying? We understand, or at least I understand, looking at the hierarchy of needs, the pyramid, that that's all what a Roman subject could aspire to be or aspire to have. That's the kind of happiness, just love and belonging. I mean, great friends. That's it. But again, today, because we can aspire to be and do more, then we won't be fully satisfied with good friends. And my sense is neither would the ancient Roman subjects. I mean, yeah, you can try to convince yourself using philosophy that it's stupid. You're going to suffer if you have higher hopes, higher expectations on life, and you're just going to suffer. So put that idea out of your mind. That's silly. That's stupid. You're just going to suffer. Uh, okay, so maybe that's why it was a dark period in history. Would you agree? And who would be concerned with science or metaphysics? When you just have to grow your vegetables, you have to milk your cows, right? To survive. And then a Roman tax collector official would come and take all your profits and your extras so you can barely just have enough to eat and survive and stay alive. So what a terrible world. But anyways, let's do the next the next philosophy, I should say, the skeptics. Okay, Pyrrho being the main figure, and these are people who are more, how can I say, cynic, in the sense that their outlook on life is just so pessimistic. I hope you understand why now, right? Being Roman subjects and so on. And they had their main idea is that the nature of things is indeterminable. That you will never, or we people, we will never be able to understand the true nature of things, of reality, because all we get from reality are appearances. And this is something the sophist also used to say, some sophists at least, that we cannot have certainty, we cannot have knowledge, objective knowledge about the world, objective, right? Knowledge that it's valid for everybody, that is safe, that is certain. No, we can't have that because all we have is just appearances. Things appear to us in one way. For me, things might appear one way. For you, might appear a different way. I use this example in a different video. Right now, the room for me, it's perfect, the temperature, and for somebody else might feel cold, and for somebody else might feel hot. So who's right? We're all right and nobody's right at the same time. So that's what it's meant by not having certainty about the world. Something that to you looks green for somebody might look bluish, and so who's right? Nobody's right, everybody's right. The fact of the matter is, according to the skeptics, we will never have certainty. We will never have knowledge of the world. But all we can have for knowledge is just appearances, how things appear to us. So the best the best thing we can do about this issue of attaining knowledge is just to suspend judgment. So just go with what whatever impressions you get from the world, from people. Use that and go with that, and that's it, right? And suspend judgment. Don't start analyzing things and categorizing things and using your inference to obtain some information about the nature of things, right? Like Plato did, right? With the idea of the higher forms, right? That whenever you have a word that is used to classify a particular group of animals, like cows, you have the word cow. Well, that word it's a higher, no, it's a form, it's a lower form. It's a scientific concept. So okay, the skeptics would say, okay, that's pure nonsense. You have no idea. You don't know a thing about cows, about reality. All cows are different. No two cows are the same, and they might show different characteristics to different people. So the best thing you can do is suspend judgment. If you come up with objective narratives about knowledge and about the world, all you are doing is being dogmatic, right? So that's another word that they use, being dogmatic, being possessed by some sort of ideology, narrative that supposedly explains the world. So all this talk of having objective knowledge, that's just being dogmatic, being committed to a set of axioms and ideas that you cannot really prove. You cannot really prove. You cannot really establish in a convincing universal way because people, again, feels differently about different things. So one thing about the skeptics is that I mean, this position about knowledge might be appealing to some people, especially today. There are many people today who are skeptics, right? They believe everything is relative, knowledge is relative. There's no certainty about anything in the world, especially about morality, right? And about God, I mean, about ideas. Those things are so abstract, so subjective, that nothing is really factual, nothing is really objective or 100% certain for everybody. Many people today like that idea, especially in philosophy. Well, we have the postmoderns, right? The postmodern philosophers who I would say they're the new skeptics. They pretty much share the same fundamental assumptions or beliefs about the world, that everything it's knowledge is relative, there's no certainty, big objective narratives that claim to be, once again, objective or scientific. They're just all nonsense. Or objective, our scientific theories have been proven wrong over and over again throughout history. So we cannot know everything, anything with absolute certainty. So that's pretty much the postmodern position. So not very different from the skeptics. And another thing that postmodern philosophers share with the skeptics is this insistence of proclaiming the end of philosophy, like the end of philosophy. There's no point philosophizing. There's no point in reasoning things out, analyzing this. There's just absolutely no point. It's all nonsense. We can prove your position, your philosophy. I can totally deconstruct it and prove it absolutely useless. Um, in my video, the video I made about the sophist, one of the sophists, I'm trying to remember if it was, I think it was Gorgias, who said that there's a big issue with words. A word like tree cannot fully encapsulate the reality of a tree that you see. So when I say tree, okay, yes, you understand what that is, but and yet everybody can have a different mental picture of a tree coming into popping into their heads. So so you see, words are limited, and our image, whatever the word transmit to our thinking, it's different. So it's not the same. So there cannot be any objective knowledge about anything. That was the position of the sophist regarding language. And postmodern philosophers would say the exact same thing. So what's the point of doing philosophy and coming up with concepts and understanding, analyzing concepts? It's all nonsense, right? For the postmodern philosopher, all there is power. Power. That's the only thing that it's real that matters. So we use these philosophies and these narratives, and we use science simply to have power, exercise power over nature, over other human beings, political power, economic power, etc., etc. So it's all about power for the postmodern. And I would say, well, I'm pretty sure the skeptics and the sophists, many sophists, would agree. But going back to the skeptics, um, there's just something so shallow that they believe in, and this is in the textbook. I'm going to read it to you in about the skeptics. Right? It says, and I'm quoting from the textbook again. As long as we seek certainty about the true nature of things, we will be in doubt. This is the position of the skeptics. As long as we are in doubt, we will be annoyed. As long as we are annoyed, we will be unhappy. So the key to quietude and happiness is to give up the search for certainty, right? Because that's the end, right? Happiness, having a good, peaceful life to the degree that people in Roman times they could. So you want to have quietude, peace of mind, happiness. Well, stop searching for certainty. Stop doing philosophy, right? Stop being rational about things. Stop trying to understand the world and coming up with ideas and whatever. Stop that. You're suffering or you're going to suffer. And I think this is a shallow attitude for a simple reason. Um, and the reason is that many people find meaning pursuing knowledge, certainty. It's meaningful. It's something you actually enjoy doing. I enjoy doing that. For many years since I was young, I wanted to understand things. There were so many things that I did not understand, and 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 I guess that's why I'm a philosopher. I started investigating, talking to people, and then reading books. The whole journey was beautiful. Brought me here. I absolutely love my life. Speaking of happiness, and speaking of happiness, looking at the pyramid on the screen, right? I feel achieved. Look at that gray green level, right? I feel achieved. I feel I have the respect of people. You know, when I introduce myself to people, to new people, and they ask me, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" I said, "I'm an educator." Oh, that's the reaction. Oh, that's really good. Yeah, we love educators. We need educators. What do you teach? I say, I teach philosophy. Oh my God, that is so cool. And I feel, yes, I know. That it's cool, friends. I have the respect. The people respect me for what I do. And obviously that gives me confidence. I feel achieved and I feel like a unique individual. There's things that I know that I like doing that they're very particular to me. And I like that. And we all like that, right? And then if you look at the top of the pyramid, morality, creativity, spontaneity, acceptance, experience of purpose, I do have that absolutely. I experience purpose, meaning and inner potential. Absolutely. I have a mission in life. In another video, I might talk about it. Um, and my life is so focused and has a beautiful direction and meaning and purpose, and it's beautiful, right? That's at the pinnacle of the hierarchy of needs. Um, I believe I'm pursuing something greater than myself, right? So there you go. Has to do, I guess, with morality, with religion. I would put religion also at the top of the hierarchy, finding like you have a mission in life, right? So you have something to do for humanity. You have a legacy to leave behind, and so on. So these are great things. These are things that are at the pinnacle of the hierarchy of needs. And and again, for for the skeptics, it's definitely shallow for them to just say, no, that's going to make you unhappy. You know, the search for certainty. That's not true. It's not true. It's not even true for a Roman subject in antiquity. It's beautiful to know, to learn things. So I can probably picture myself, let's say, being maybe a farmer, back in Roman times, and really studying my crops and studying and trying to perfect my techniques for growing vegetables, for watering, and for the nutrients that I have to put on the ground, on the soil. And I would have found that fascinating, meaningful, understanding, having objective knowledge of the whole process of growing crops. That's knowledge, right? Fascinating. It's not something that makes me or makes people unhappy. It might make some people unhappy, but knowledge, I would say, is something we most people, for sure, most people value. Knowing things. I mean, knowledge is power, right? Speaking of postmodernism and power, which is interesting now that I think about it. It's even contradictory for the postmodern philosophers to say, don't pursue objective knowledge, don't pursue philosophy. In the end, it's all about power. Well, but that's contradictory because knowledge gives you power. This is true. Okay, well, I'm talking to myself right now. So that was the position of the skeptics. But now, so for the skeptics, I'm looking at the pyramid of needs. Where do we, how can we assess them using the pyramid, right? So they don't talk a whole lot about love and belonging or about having a source of income, social ability, sense of, it's very strange. Like, and it's like it's so unfulfilling. Like looking at this pyramid, it's the skeptic, the philosophy of the skeptic is so unfulfilling. I don't think people can be happy being skeptics, refusing to pursue knowledge. Like you don't want to know anything, man. That will get you to a very strange place. You will end up being probably a, I don't know, a homeless person. You're not interested in learning anything, and you just want peace of mind, and you don't want to pursue anything, and all you want is just have food and a place to live. So I guess the skeptic philosophy is just limited to that first base category of needs, the bottom category. You have food, you have a place to live, you have clothing. Okay, you're good. For the rest, just don't worry about pursuing knowledge, and you'll be fine. Boy, that's very, very shallow. I'm sorry I say that so many times, but um, Epicureanism is more fulfilling, right? At least we can go up a couple of levels. So, but now Stoicism, same thing. Their main concern is happiness. They believe that happiness is attained by some sort of self-sufficiency. I love the Stoics. The Stoics are amazing, and you're going to see where they fall in this assessment of using the hierarchy of needs. Self-sufficiency, that's cool though. That's cool. Feeling like nothing can distress you because you're in control of everything, of your thoughts. If you're in control of your thoughts, you're in control of everything. And this is exactly the Stoics' position. Yes, you do control your thoughts. So, as a matter of fact, what produces unhappiness, according to the Stoics, is your judgment of things or your misjudgment, your bad judgment of things. Uh, because think about it, there's a tragedy, an earthquake. And many people see that as a tragedy, of course, and they suffer and they cry. And other people might see it as an opportunity. Well, to maybe now that everything is destroyed, maybe I can make some money building stuff. I remember living in Miami. I used to live in Florida many years ago, and we had two hurricanes the same season, the same summer, uh, going through Miami. Category one. One of them was Katrina. So we're talking about what, 2005 or something, 2004, something like that. But anyways, and of course, it was a major. People were distressed because of it. But me, I was, I was man, ecstatic because at the time, I was doing carpentry, and I saw that as an opportunity to make a lot of money, fixing and making wood fences for people. Man, I made so much money, friends. Like, I'm not kidding you, that every hurricane season, I pray to God for hurricanes. I said, please, God, send a hurricane to Miami, just category 1, and not something too destructive, so I can have plenty of jobs. And I'm sure I'm not the only one on this kind of desires, right? Or prayer request, because again, many people profit from tragedies like that. So other people can find a different meaning in a tragedy, in an earthquake or hurricane. They can see that as an opportunity to reflect about the fragility of life, and might awaken people the need to examine themselves. Like, well, I mean, I lost everything. Now what? What should I do with my life? What have I done with my life? So that can be positive for sure. That's personal growth. That's always positive. Other people might see a tragedy as a sign from God, whatever. The point is, and this is the Stoic position, right? We choose, we decide what attitude we're going to assume. So, so be aware of judgment, the kind of judgment you pass on things. Make sure you pass the best judgment. Unlike the skeptics who they exhorted people to suspend judgment. Don't judge anything. Goodness gracious. I guess they would love our judgment-free zones. I'm just a thought. But anyways, those were the skeptics. The Stoics would say, no, you have to be mindful of how you judge. Judge with reason. Be wise when you judge, when you make an analysis, when you come to a conclusion. Make sure you come to the right conclusion. One thing that I learned from the Stoics several years ago now, they would say that it is your bad judgment on things that make you suffer. I learned to not have expectations. I learned this from the Stoics. Um, and because I realize how much we suffer because of expectations. Things that we want to do, things that we expect, and then when they don't happen, these things don't materialize, then we suffer. From trivial things like hoping that our team wins whatever, the Super Bowl or whatever, and then we suffer because our team loses, and then we're like, people truly suffer. They get depressed when some they have expectations about games and stuff, and I've seen it. In my own life I have suffered, but I don't anymore. I don't have expectations about anything now. I don't expect my team to win. I still have a favorite team, but when I watch games, I'm like, if they win, great. But I'm not expecting that they would win every single game because I would suffer, right? But but that might be trivial to you. But let me give you a more, I would say, important example. My the first year that I spent with my wife, my first birthday. I have two teenage daughters who live with mom. They've been living with mom for many years. Um, and um, and my birthday passed. The next day, the day after my birthday, my wife tells me, she says, "Hey, honey, your yesterday was your birthday, and your daughters did not call you to say happy birthday." And I said, "Well, yeah, they forgot, surely." And she says, "That does not bother you?" Like, and I said, "No." She says, "Why?" I said, "Because I don't expect anything from anybody. I do not have expectations about anything. I like really don't. I have goals in life, right? Because looking at the pyramid, there are things that I want to achieve that I know I can achieve with hard work, with diligence. I know I can get those things. So I have plans, I have goals for me, and and they're realistic. They're things that I know I can achieve with discipline and hard work. So, but I don't expect from anybody anything. So, and you know what? What that does is when they do call, like my past birthday, they did call. it's great because I'm not expecting anybody to call me in my birthday, but when they do, I'm like, I'm super happy. I was like, wow, thank you so much for calling. I'm like really grateful. And it's all about happiness, right? That's what we're talking about here. Happiness. I'm happy when I don't have expectations, and I'm unhappy when I do. Can you imagine? It's your birthday and you're expecting people to make you feel special, right? To acknowledge you, to bring you presents, to call you, whatever, throw you a surprise party. And at the end of the day, you find yourself at home and nobody called you, nobody did anything special to you. You feel like, yes, you feel like that, like poop, and you suffer. Well, guess what? Uh, don't have no expectations about the world. Zero. You're going to be fine. You're going to be happy. You're going to be glad when the world surprises you with something you were not expecting, something good, right? And you can expect tragedies. That's part of the world. That's part of reality. We suffer. There's pain. So um, I learned also this recently, reading a beautiful psychology book, beautiful book, The Road Less Traveled. Beautiful book. I highly recommend it. The author is a clinical psychologist. He says people suffer because there's pain in the world. That's absurd. Like like the world is supposed to be painless. Like there's supposed we're supposed to live in a perfect ideal world. No, this in this world you're going to get sick. You're going to get tired. You're going to get hurt, emotionally, physically. So I mean, right? Deal with it. It's just the way it is. It's absurd to pretend that life should be great, should be easy. No, it's not easy. It's not great. It's not perfect. So that's I would say that's a stoic sort of way of thinking. The world is hard, so we got to deal with it. But the way the Stoics dealt with it, and I'm going to close with this because this is beautiful. The Stoics believed in divine providence, right? Or the idea of the logos, that supposedly the world is ruled by this um, divine intelligence. The world is rational, right? That's the idea of the logos. Goes back to the pre-Socratic philosophers, Heraclitus. They took up the same idea, but they would use the term providence, pretty much the same idea. And the Stoics, though, they added this very very important contribution to the idea of the logos. That supposedly the logos has a plan for humanity. Okay, and we must understand that there's a plan, that divine providence, the logos, has a plan for me, for the entire world, for humanity, and we must understand it and we must accept it and conform to it. Okay, because that means what? That means that whatever happens to us happens for a reason. So there you go. That's the Stoics' position on tragedies, on pain, hurricanes. If it happens for a reason. The good divine providence, the good logos knows why this happened. This is gonna, in the end, this is gonna turn out to be a good thing for us. You don't see it right now because our vision is limited, but divine providence knows. So, what's the best thing you can do? The best attitude you can adopt is, okay, it's that precisely. Understand things happen for a reason, for a good reason, and we must accept that and conform to the will of providence, the divine will. Now, why is this a beautiful idea? Because I'm looking again at the hierarchy of needs, and that speaks of religion. Didn't I say that a few minutes ago? Religion, it's at the top. It's also part of the pinnacle of the pyramid. Self-actualization, believing in something greater than yourself, believing in a divine plan. That's that's great, man. That's the pinnacle. Like you cannot find anything higher in terms of value, in terms of personal growth than something like that. like a religious belief, that a belief in having some sort of role to play in um, the whole play, right, in of the divine providence, the divine logos. We have a role to play, and if we play to the best of our abilities, then we're going to be a good part of the whole plan. And that's it, right? Believing in religion is something greater than yourself, and experiencing purpose because you think, okay, um, I can either, it's my choice to either conform to the will of providence or not. If I don't, I'm going to suffer. I don't want to do that. I'm going to be unhappy. I want to be happy. So I'm going to accept the will of providence, the will of God, you might say. Same thing. So, okay, so I'm going through something very painful, maybe a very painful condition, maybe cancer. Okay, well, I'm gonna die. That's the divine plan for me, and that's good. I'm gonna welcome it with a smile on my face because this is what God intended for me to go through and to die. So I accept it, and I'm actually glad because I'm gonna meet my Creator. I'm gonna meet God. That's that's well, that's religious, Mr. Molina. Yeah, I'm not religious, I have to say, but I get it. I get it. I consider myself a spiritual, and I can see from the spiritual point of view, it's appealing. It makes sense. I like it. I like that idea. Um, so I probably believe more in the logos than in a God, in a traditional idea of God. So I'm like the Stoics in that sense, I have to say, in my religious beliefs, quote unquote religious beliefs. So it's appealing to me. It's proven by fact, by research. I often mention a Harvard University professor researcher on happiness, who he has dedicated his entire life to study happiness. And I watched a video of him recently. Gosh, I don't remember his name, and I apologize. Um, but he basically he says that happy people have exhibit four things. They value four things. This is very very well studied, very well documented. People who are happy, absolutely happy, they're living their best lives. Number one, they have a great. It says they have great friends, great friends. Oh, so that's the Epicureans, right? That's the yellow level. Yeah, great friends. They have that. They love what they do for a living. They love what they do, and that's self-esteem. I get achievement, right? And I'm trying to remember. They have family. They love their families. That's how it is. Number one, they love their families. Okay, that's sort of the orange and yellow families in both. They love their families. They have great friends. Number two. Number three, they love what they do for a living. And number four, they are religious. This is by a Harvard social psychology professor researcher. So it's very well studied, friends, very well documented. Maslow knew it. Maslow knew that for people to be self-actualized or reach that stage of self-actualization, to live their best life, they need some sort of religious belief or something similar to a religious belief, which is what I think I have. So, okay, so the Stoicism, okay, it looks at considers the pinnacle of the pyramid, and it's incredibly meaningful, which is why Stoicism is so, to this day, it's just so appealing. Marcus Aurelius, the man on the picture, right, the Roman emperor, his book Meditations, it's a classic, and it's incredible how much today people are huge fan of the meditations. And I hear students talking about it, people in the media talking about it. It's a beautiful and has been a tremendously helpful, influential book, and people use it for personal growth. This is Stoicism, friends. Why is it so appealing? You want to know why? Well, look at the pyramid on the screen. it relates, I mean, and it touches that very important fundamental thing that we're pursuing. It has to do with our growth, with what's most valuable for us in life, feeling like we're in a mission, the feeling like that we're part of something greater than ourselves, and so on. Well, Stoicism has that. Epicureanism doesn't. It's just you have good friends, that's it. Yellow level, that's it. Don't aspire to more. But again, we understand the times, right? During those times, it was difficult to aspire to more, and yet the Stoics found a way. Yes, you can. All you need is to understand the bigger plan, divine providence, the logos, God. Once you get that, and you realize that the best way for you to live is to simply accept it and conform to the divine plan, you're going to live your best life. Wow. So beautiful, so appealing. So I would love to hear your thoughts. So please post a comment, especially about the stuff on expectations. That absolutely transformed my way of living and my way of thinking. Zero expectations. You can have goals, but expecting people to do things for you, things that are beyond your control. Zero expectations. What's in your control? Okay, that's great. Make plans. But if you're involved in something that is outside of your control, you just forget it. Don't have those expectations because you're going to be disappointed. You're going to suffer. Okay, I think I made my point. Every time I say the same thing, when I find myself repeating myself, that means that's the end. So thank you so much for watching. Bye bye.